everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Pattison Report podcast. As always, I'm Brandon. That's Ryan. And we kind of had a bit of an epiphany earlier today when we were addressing just the latest thing that went completely sideways, as everything in Philadelphia sports has seemed to do this last month. We realized that we've been really harping on the Eagles ever since they got eliminated. And, granted, they got eliminated earlier than we wanted to. Season wasn't great. And we're not done harping on the Eagles. We're going to circle back to that. But the Phillies have kind of stolen the show when you're talking about ineptitude. We see what happened with, the Nick Sirianni's coaching staff, and Dave Dombrowski said, hold my beer. I'm going to make some dumb moves in myself, take some heat off of Nick across the street. And Dave has just really put on a masterclass of what not to do in MLB free agency. We could talk about, watching Ranger walk out the door, which at the time hurt, but you could have, I got myself there mentally because I was like, we're going to lose Ranger, pitching to strength, kind of sucks, but God, Bo Bichette's going to be so worth it. And then you don't get Bichette. And then you go, all right, well, Ranger's gone. We didn't get Bichette. I'm all for some panic moves. Let's spend some stupid money and get somebody we don't need. And then Bellinger goes. And then Luis Robert goes. And then, not that we were in the market for him, but then Freddie Peralta goes. The latter of those two to the Mets, along with Bichette. So Phillies fans have now had to watch their football team lose way earlier than anybody expected. You try to shift over to Philly season for hope, and you realize that we lost a fan favorite Swiss Army knife pitcher, replaced with nobody. Bo Bichette and his camp used us to get the number, and Dave got outmaneuvered. Then you watch the outfielder you've been quietly keeping tabs on for 2 years go to the division rival. Then you watch that same division rival add a frontline starter, and we're sitting here with our hands in our pockets re-signing JT to the most expensive deal any catcher got this offseason by a huge margin. Everything sucks, Ryan. I'm sad.
Look, I think this is the worst MLB offseason that any team has had thus far. If you were to grade them 1 to 32, I'd put the Phillies in dead last.
Yeah.
It's just how it goes. Those mid-market teams, they have limited money to maneuver with. But the Phillies, Middleton says he has this big stack of cash. I know we have a lot committed to Bryce, Trey, and all those other guys. But, man, oh, man, is it just a disaster in Philadelphia? I don't even know where we want to start. The Bellinger one, that was kind of out there. He was probably always going to go back to the Yankees. That one doesn't hurt all that much. But the Luis Robert one, the Bichette one, those are daggers right through the heart, man. It's just there's nothing really to point optimism at. And it's just so bad. I don't know how we go from we won 80 so quick from, this is great. We played the NLCS World Series. We won a Super Bowl. And now it's just 2 years later. We're like, what happened?
Yeah, our football team gets bounced in the first round by an injured Niners. Our baseball team suddenly can't make it past the first round 2 years in a row. The uber-aggressive GM that we were told was going to decimate our farm system to bring in star talent suddenly became gun-shy when he got to Philadelphia. And now we're watching the Mets, who we've kind of gotten to laugh at the last few years. Granted, they beat us in the DS 2 years ago. But by and large, we've kind of had the Mets number until recently. And you're watching them do all the things that we've begged Dave to do. They have an objectively talented team as it sits. They should have been better than they were last year. But they cut ties with some of these some of these long-time Mets. Some of these guys who were, the fabric of the team, which Dave doesn't seem to have it in them to do. The Mets did those things. They moved on from these pieces who were good players, but never found the way to win in Queens. So they went out and got Semien. They went out and got Peralta. They went out and got Luis Robert, Bo Bichette. They pushed their cards to the middle, and it kind of feels like Dave is just. He's kind of just thrown it in neutral. We're going into the year, with another very similar player to Casty and Wright. two rookies that are going to have a ton of expectation because of the way we've set this roster up. And we're going to get to the deadline, and we're going to be looking for a right-handed power bat the same way we have for the last 3 goddamn seasons.
That out-of-field rental overpay, the trade deadline is going to hit, man. It's going to be so great. Because everyone knows it's coming, and it's going to happen. Like, it's almost guaranteed at this point that it's going to happen, that you're going to get that right-handed outfield power bat. And it's just, like, where do we go wrong? I mean, I know Bryce and Trey are never going to leave. They have no trade clauses. But Realmuto shake things up, walk him out the door. Castellanos is, not going to play, but that's another $20 million on the cap. What has Dave really done? I know you're more the optimist and I'm more the pessimist here. I'll give him credit for the Luzardo trade. That was fantastic. But
Trey was a good signing.
Trey was a good signing, but how much did Dombrowski really play in that? How much was that Bryce and Kyle?
It's mostly those two, for sure.
Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, sure, he brings Kyle back, great, whatever. That's fantastic. Kyle wanted to be here anyway, so it's not like Dave worked some magic or something. Kyle came out and stated that he turned down more money from other teams.
Yeah.
So it's like, what has he really done? I mean, the one trade that really, that's a good trade. I'll give him that one as well.
So Luzardo and Duran are two really good moves.
But you have to have more to compete with the Dodgers and the Mets and what they're doing. And
I'm with you. I mean, we're looking at Dave's tenure and going, okay, some good moves, or we have those two off the top of your head. I still think the Marsh trade was a pretty good move. He's filled a need for several seasons. Logan O'Hoppe can't catch. So,
feels like a disaster now, though.
Yeah. What is it?
It feels like a disaster, that one. I was going to bring that one up.
I mean, O'Hoppe can hit, but he's horrendous behind the plate. He was never going to be a catcher.
I was looking to see his grades on Baseball Savant. Okay, never mind. It worked out fine. Fine. People are overreacting to that.
Yeah, it's because he mashed for about half a season, and people were like, "Oh my God, we screwed up." But the rest of his career does not match up.
Realmuto has a higher hitting value this season, and I didn't even look at Realmuto's hitting value. I just know because O'Hoppe's hitting value was a 2.
Yeah, he's not a good baseball player.
Realmuto was probably like a 10 or something.
Yeah,
31.
So that move is fine, But again, when you compare him across the street, I mean, it's a bad offseason for Howie if he doesn't have 2 or 3 great moves. We're looking at Dave's tenure, and our third move is Brandon Marsh.
Yeah, look, comparing the two, sides of the parking lot, we knew Howie was going to be cash strapped, like the salary cap in football. He was up against the cap. He had lots of people to resign, lots of contracts to think about coming down the road. With Dave, it is. They had the money for Bichette. They said, we'll spend it. They went all the way down to the last minute. The Mets swooped in after Kyle Tucker took him. So now they just don't spend this money at all. Howie just didn't have the money in general because of the salary cap. Dave and Middleton had the money. They had it, and they didn't spend it.
And Howie did more with what he had than Dave did with this open pocketbook that baseball has. I mean, with no money, Howie was able to plug the CB2 gap rather admirably given the resources, get Tank Bigsby for a song, and then, they develop players a lot better than and get Jalen Phillips. Like, with no money, Howie brought in 3 impact football players for this team. With no salary cap and a very aggressive owner, Dave couldn't find a way to make this team marginally better this year. It's crazy.
He's asleep at the wheel. And we've given him in the past because we've been talking about the Eagles so much because we had expectations for them, unlike we do the Phillies, because, they're just letdowns every year. They're going to win 90 games this year, and no one's going to care.
I remember I warned us about this a couple of years ago, and I wasn't wrong. I might have just been a little early, but I think we're in Sixers territory. I think for the fan base, this might be the first year of wake me up in September.
I think you might be right. I mean, the Sixers got a lot A lot of good things going on. Edgecombe was a smash pick. We talked about that when he was drafted. The whole Ace Bailey controversy. Ace Bailey's is so with the Utah Jazz. I don't know what they're doing over there in Utah with their rotation and everything. It's weird if you watch it a little bit, but I think it's Sixers. It's Sixers right after the Eagles now.
Yeah, I mean, Joel's playing at a high level. Tyrese Maxey's an all-star starter. BJ Edgecombe's an exciting rookie. You got Andre Drummond learned how to shoot threes all of a sudden this season. That's fun to watch.
It's like 30%, isn't he?
Yeah, he's firing triples for the first time in his career. So yeah, I mean, there's more.
Ben Simmons had no excuse, man. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah,
that's all I'm gonna say.
So, and I think the Phillies are going to learn kind of how the Sixers have felt the last 4 or 5 years, where they're going to try to do all these things and make people care, and they've squandered so much goodwill with this fan base to where I think people are going to kind of just, prove it to me. Like, I don't care what you do in May, June, July, and August. We've seen you be great in the summer. Wake me up in the fall.
I think the Eagles are approaching that territory quickly, just with how high the expectations are and how poorly this past season went.
Yeah, I mean,
we're going to talk about that in a little bit.
I do. I think the Eagles are in the 2023 Phillies scenario where they just lost to the D-backs. You're mad because you expected more, but the future is still bright.
But they do have that ring. The Phillies never got that ring.
That's the thing, yeah. So the Eagles are even in a better spot, maybe.
They're definitely in a better spot.
I'm jaded because of how poorly this year went, but we also know exactly what the blueprint is to win again. Like, for the Phillies and the Sixers, you don't know what that looks like. You haven't done it. Phillies since 2008, Sixers since, was it 83? So you're trying to learn what it's going to take to get there and win it. For the Eagles, every fan knows what they need. The talent's there. They need Nick to step out of the way. You need a creative play caller. We've seen the blueprint work twice now in the last that's fixable. The tricky thing with the Sixers and the Phillies is you don't know what you need in order to win it. And especially in the Phillies case, it felt to me like last year again. I mean, you kind of had the Dodgers where you wanted them. If you looked beyond LA, now Toronto put up one hell of a World Series. I mean, my hat's off to them.
They would beat the Phillies.
But if once you got past LA, there was another boogeyman out there. And I mean that the year before that with the Mets, I mean it was even an easier road. Like it just feels like they've squandered their opportunities.
Yeah, and I think we should give the Sixers more grace than the Phillies. Honestly, the Sixers went for it. I think they win the whole thing if that Kawhi bounce goes their way. That miraculous, stupid bounce off the rim.
At least they took a swing. Like I'm with you. Like that team
would have worked.
It's incredibly deep. They went out and got Jimmy Butler. You get Tobias Harris. You have Joel Embiid. You still had Ben. You had JJ Redick. Like the Sixers frustrate me to no end, but it's not because they don't take the big swing. Like every offseason, really until the last two. Well, no, really until this one, they've taken a huge cut at a big time name. Now it never works, and it's soul crushing, but they're taking swings.
They're taking swings, and like I said, they were a bounce away. I think they go in and they roll this.
That team wins the title.
Was it the Suns that year? Who was it that year? Or the Suns?
No, the Suns haven't won one. The Toronto won.
The Suns were the year after against the Bucks.
Yeah, Toronto won that year.
Yeah, they beat the Thunder, didn't they? Or the Warriors. That was the end of the Warriors dynasty.
They got
Clay and KD both had knee injuries, like significant ones in that finals. I remember now.
Yeah.
That's who it was. I think the Sixers could have beaten them. So, they were one bad bounce away. The Phillies just collapse over and over and over again. The Sixers were right there, and they just needed one little thing to go their way that didn't. The Phillies, they get these bounces, they get these good players, and they just collapse when it matters the most.
And that's the thing. There's a missing piece. And, I like a lot of the guys on the team. Like, I love Kyle Schwarber. I think he's a great locker room guy. But I think he's a great locker room guy in the sense that, to liken it to the other two teams. And he's a great locker room guy in the same way that, Joel Embiid is, or the same way that, maybe Jordan Mailata is, or Devontae is an Eagle. Like, they're good locker room guys. They bring people together, but they're not going to have the hard conversation. Like, there's not that undisputed leader. And I think that's what gets us every October. You see when things start going sideways for the Phillies, there's not that person to kind of, galvanize the troops and turn the tide. It just keeps falling and falling and falling and falling. At one point it was Rhys, and I think it's telling that since we've lost Rhys Hoskins, the culture of this team has shifted so dramatically. There needs to be that voice or that guy who kind of just says enough is enough. And it's not on the Phillies currently. I thought Harrison Bader was the closest thing we've had to that in a little while. But they haven't shown interest in bringing him back either. So there's something fundamentally flawed about that roster. And I'm not even talking between the lines.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you what exactly it is. They have all the talent in the world, and it seems to go south when the going gets the toughest. Yeah,
like the Sixers have Tyrese Maxey. The balls that it took for him last year to publicly call out Joel for being late to meetings, like that's your undisputed team leader. The Eagles have had a litany of guys, but for the past 2 years it's been BG. Like, when the conversation needs to be had, or someone needs to get whipped into shape, that it falls on BG right now. The Phillies, Bryce hasn't shown an interest. JT's not the vocal leader. Kyle's more of a good time kind of guy. All of our pitchers are like the quiet assassin type. Like, you know what I'm saying? There's not that guy.
Yeah, they need a leader, a vocal leader, and obviously they're not going to get it because they're not willing to spend any more money, even though they were apparently willing to fork out $200 million to Bo Bichette, but suddenly they don't have money.
Well, and that's the other. I don't know. What bothers me the most about the Bo Bichette thing, and then we'll switch over to the Eagles because we're not done with them yet, is it's just. I know we had the money, and I just, for the life of me, I'm in sales for a living. Like, this is my day-to-day for 5 years has been just kind of these, unwritten rules, negotiations, and things like that. How on earth do you, as Dave Dombrowski, one of the premier GMs in baseball, the way you view yourself, agree to a number, agree to terms, and let him walk out the door and go, well, we'll get to it tomorrow? How do you let him out the building?
Well, if you ask Twitter what it was, you know exactly what they're going to say.
What?
They say it's past his bedtime.
He's too old.
That's what I've been hearing when I scroll. They say it's past Dave Dombrowski's bedtime, and I don't know how I feel about that one. But man,
how do you let him out?
How do you let him out the door?
You don't let him leave.
You trap him in there like they did to DeAndre Jordan all those years ago.
That's what I'm saying. That's a team that wanted it. They locked that man in his own house.
If you want it bad enough, you're going to lock him in his own house.
Yeah, you're telling me that you're sitting together talking, and Dave goes, all right, fine, 7 years, 200. Bo goes, all right, that's what we were looking for. And the next words out of your mouth as Dave Dombrowski is, can't wait to see you in the morning. We'll ink it up. What are you, nuts? You think the first thing his agent's not going to do is call every other suitor and see if they can get a better offer?
Oh, yeah, with the opt-outs and everything. He's an opt-out after, year one?
Now, yes, look, it burns me up that the Mets got Bichette and we lost out on them. However, that is a horrendous contract.
It's not good.
Opt-outs it's a 1-year deal.
1 year, $50-some million.
Yeah. Did you see the press conference? To their credit, someone on the Mets beat ass.
Good for them.
With the way that this is structured, do you see this as a 1-year deal? And he looked right to his agent, as if to say, I don't know how to answer this. What am I allowed to say?
Help, please.
Yeah. I'm mad that we lost them, but that is a brutal contract for the Mets. It's a 1-year deal with extra steps.
Cohen has all that money. It doesn't matter.
No, it's not my money. It's not a waste of money, but I just apply that to, every other sport, and it's a contract you wouldn't even consider offering. But baseball is just a completely different set of rules, and that's why we're not going to have it for 2 years.
I think there might be baseball in 2027, albeit severely shortened, but I'm even waiting on that because this whole salary cap thing with what we heard Bryce say last year about, get out of my locker room to Manfred. These negotiations aren't going to go well.
No, I mean, some early numbers being thrown around are like a $300 million cap, and the MLBPA is going to laugh them out of the building.
No, it's not going to happen. They're not even going to get close.
No, it's going to be a disaster. But speaking of a disaster, we're having a hard time finding somebody who wants to work in Philadelphia, and I can't imagine why. You get to be the offensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles. You get the privilege of having Nick Sirianni breathe down your neck and ask questions, make sure you know what you're doing. And if things don't go well, I mean, we're going to egg your houses. Why on earth does nobody want to come take this position?
Yeah, I get it. Between the media here, always going to be on you like nobody else. The coach, like you said, breathing down your neck, and then of course the fans who take it a little too far. I mean, come on, just mail a playbook to the facility and call it a day. Like if you're gonna troll around, mail a playbook to like a known address, and then if that story came out, everyone would be laughing. They'd find it kind of funny, honestly.
Yeah. Now, I mean, I'm playing this up just kind of for comedic effect. I am truthfully of the belief that if you believe in yourself and you are a great offensive mind and you have a plan for this roster, I think the Eagles' OC job is a kingmaker. I mean, you've seen Shane Steichen go from relative anonymity head coach. Kellen Moore, who was already a very good OC, wasn't really in that head coaching cycle. Great season with the Eagles head coach. Like if you come here and succeed, you're that next head coaching cycle, you're a prominent name. Now, the flip side is we don't tolerate mediocrity for long. You're not going to get a long runway if the team doesn't win right away. But if I'm an offensive coordinator and I'm not in this head coaching cycle this year, or maybe, you're looking at having to take the Browns job or something terrible, I like the Eagles OC job over the Browns head coaching job. I think it's a quicker path to a head coaching gig than working for the Browns.
I mean, people agree. Defensive coordinator of the Rams, Chris Shula, said no thanks to interviewing. It's not a desirable job, and especially when you're attached to a GM, that's a whole different head coaching thing, which we'll probably talk about next offseason after Nick gets maybe fired, because they're going to be attached to Howie, because Howie has probably the longest leash in the sport outside of Jerry Jones, who owns the team.
Yeah.
Outside of people who own the team partially or have some stake in ownership that manage the personnel aspects of it. But man, oh man, it's tough because you see they promised full autonomy of the offense, and I don't think Kellen got that. You look at the pace of play that he's had the past couple of years. They've been like 1st, 3rd, 5th this year with the Saints. Eagles 24th.
Yeah.
I think Sirianni has too much influence on this offense and this team, and I think he's one of the main reasons why no one wants to work for the team. I mean, I've said this so many times. I argue with my dad all the time. I'm like, have you ever seen this guy like talk scheme? Because I haven't, and I mention that every so often on here.
Well, I still haven't. I watched the last episode. Did you watch NFC East Hard Knocks?
No, because I don't want to relive the pain.
It's painful. But I watched the last episode after you and I had talked about Nick talking scheme and stuff like that. And Hard Knocks goes into like the groups. They go into the rooms, and you kind of hear Stout talking about concepts. You see Vic talking about where they like to go with the ball, tendencies, things of that nature. Even Christian Parker, was kind of talking about how to contain Kittle, what to worry about McCaffrey out of the backfield, what these Like all these different rooms are kind of going into, opposing team schemes and X's and O's. And they cut to the full team meeting, and it's Nick preaching about protecting the football, detail, discipline. And I never noticed before, but I watched it with your thought in the back of my head, and I'm like,
I'm telling you.
It's like our head coach is a motivational cat poster. Like it's just phrases.
I'm glad you watched that whole episode with that thought in the back of your head, because you don't really realize it till someone points it out that he doesn't talk scheme. And then you watch these interviews and you're like, oh my gosh, he really doesn't talk scheme.
Yeah. Like, and I didn't notice until now. I kept waiting for him to point out. It didn't even have to be like deep,
like complex.
Like if he pulled up a screen and showed, tendencies, or, look, when they're in this set, CMC's generally going to, motion out left, and then they're going to, like, anything. And he was just showing, it's the same stat that he references in like every post game. Look, when we win the turnover battle, this is it. We win the explosive play battle, this is it. It's like, we know. Someone gave you that chart. I understand you can read. What I need to know is, like, what do you think we need to do to win on Sunday? And it can't just be don't make a mistake. And it felt like this year his only game plan between he and Patullo, and Jalen Hurts is guilty of this too, is just don't make a mistake. And that can't be the extent of the game plan.
Yeah, I feel like Jalen talks about more. I just feel like they show that just, with the whole media perception of him just being a quiet guy who rarely speaks at all.
Yeah.
I think they want to, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But I'm telling you, it's tough to coach in Philadelphia when your head coach doesn't talk scheme. You have to plan the whole scheme. And when it goes right, he takes credit for it.
He does. I mean, that's where we'll disagree a little bit. And then I want to wrap up on this last one. I think you're right. He does take some credit for it. I don't think he gets a lot of credit for it.
I meant to say he takes. He doesn't get any credit. I know he doesn't.
Nationally, people kind of are all like us and go, well, look, he wins. We don't know how he wins, but he does win. And typically our coordinators are pretty highly sought after for roles. So I think the football world gives Eagles OCs their due. But you're right. I mean, Nick is the front man of the team. So when we win, he wins. But I do think if you're a coordinator here and you win, I think it bodes well for your career. The tricky thing about coordinating here, especially on offense, as you talk about autonomy, and which was promised, how he said the new OC will have complete autonomy over the offense. It's raised the question, do they have autonomy over staffing? And if they do, where does that leave Stout?
That's tough.
I am of the belief that he's the best offensive line coach in football. I think non-Eagle fans, non-Eagle employees would agree that Stout is the best at his craft. So my question would be, to somebody coming in and saying, well, I want to bring in my own offensive line coach. It wouldn't be an automatic no, especially if it's a great offensive mind, or not that there's that many of those left anymore. But let's just say for the sake of it, we really want Dable, and there's a sticking point with Stoutland. That person would have to interview for the job. Show me why you're demonstratively better than the best guy that we've ever seen do this in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and that's the tough part, because you want the staff, and obviously it was great that Kellen agreed to, you got to pick out a couple of his guys from Dallas, bring them with, but he's like, okay, Stoutland can stay. All these guys that were on the staff forever can stay. That was the beautiful part of it. But now it kind of feels like an unwanted job, because the head coaching, you don't get to pick all of your staff. Like Mike McDaniel's probably going to bring a ton of people over from Miami, it feels like, to LA. Dable's going to get the head coaching job in Buffalo now after that disaster. Oh my goodness. If anything ever happens like that with the Eagles, I'll be on a beach somewhere in Cabo, because I won't remember the Eagles at all.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
And then we lost Zach Robinson went somewhere today too. So
I'm not upset about that though.
I'm not either, but it is noteworthy that, I mean, we're, it's 1:30 at the bar and we're starting to get desperate.
It's very desperate, but maybe it's fantasy bias where I watched Tyler Algier running a couple of touchdowns last year. Maybe that's a little biased, but there were some schemes that weren't working for him, but they didn't have the receiver talent because they had no one past Drake London, and once Drake London went down, it was just a whole room of undrafted guys. So maybe it's unfair to judge, but you have the whole AJ Brown trade situation looming over this team. You have a bunch of stuff. I mean, Joe Brady's still out there. I'm okay kicking the tires on that. He didn't have enough wide receiver talent because the guy who just got a promotion, funny enough, didn't bring in the right wide receiver talent. And then, did you see that interview? I want to bring that up real quick because if that ever happens with the Eagles, like, this city's gonna explode.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because then the video came out that if Nick ever vouched for a guy and then Howie said I didn't want him, and then that video comes out saying Howie wanted him all along, the city's gonna be a mess. WIP is gonna get more callers than the phone lines are gonna go down. Like,
the Bills also just have to trade Coleman at this point. You can't make it any more clear that nobody wants you here except for the guy that just got fired.
See, but Howie will never say something like that. The exit interview with AJ Brown, you could maybe make a hint. You could infer it either way, like, okay, we're gonna trade him, or okay, we want to keep him. You could infer it, but it was nothing but good things.
No.
That guy said, "You're trash."
He said nobody wanted you except Sean. We did this to be nice.
That's a mess. But anyway, besides that, like I said, Joe Brady did not have a fair shot. And it did not look like management gave him a fair shot either from what went on in the higher up office up there. In pro sports, you're only as good as your owner. You're only as good as your team's owner.
Yeah, and we're fortunate to have one of the best.
Very fortunate.
Who's also a fan. We're so blessed to have an owner who's a fan. Because if it was a business, he'd probably look out and see, well, interest in the Eagles is high, seats are full. There's no need to make a move. Like, Lurie is as irrational as the rest of us, to where his team had won bad by their standard season, and apparently they had a very uncomfortable meeting with Nick Sirianni, and these changes were mandated. Like, one of us is running the Eagles, and it's so refreshing.
Right. It's great. I hope his sons are the same way. When the team's eventually going to get passed down to them, but
I hope so. But for right now, we got bigger fish to fry in the short term.
Yeah, we do, but it could always be worse. We just watched Buffalo's Super Bowl window slam shut. I keep going back to that, but I think that's a slamming shut Super Bowl window. You don't consult your quarterback on a fire. Like, Jalen has to have some input here.
I think he would. I don't think he would have necessarily input, but I absolutely think he would run by him.
They would not go behind his back and fire Nick.
Exactly. Yeah. They would be, hey,
this is what's going
to happen. Like, just, be prepared. To go around Josh Allen on that's insane.
It's so like up and down with this, with the football jobs, because sure, head coach, you're not going to have a bunch of say in the roster. You might be a little yes man to Lurie and Howie, but we trust those two at this point. And, speaking from the offensive coordinator, you're probably going to have all three of them breathing down your neck after the disaster that just happened. So I kind of get it, but we want someone that's going to override Nick, like Fangio. Vic definitely overrides him. He's like, yeah, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah, whatever, buddy. Yeah, go play with your blocks. I'm
I'm calling cover 2, deal with it.
Yeah. Oh, you want to run? You want to run quarter? Sure, bud. All right. Yeah.
Take the phone call from the booth, but yeah, we need someone like that. But there's not many names like that out there anymore. I mean, Cliff's still out there. Joe Brady has some authority in this league. I'd say a little bit. He's been an experienced play caller.
I think Cliff is now my ideal target. Dable's a wash. I really wanted McDaniel, but that ship sailed. I think because Cliff is respected as an O-City. I think he has earned that respect.
Yeah.
We'll see. That's all for next week's episode. I'm sure there will be another 40 minutes of content that come out between now and then. easily. But until such a time, as always, I'm Brandon. He's Ryan. This is the Passing Report, and we'll see you next week.